This recipe is going to allow you to try your hand at using Psyllium Husk. Psyllium Husk is just another binder that you can use in gluten-free baking. It can be a little bit harder to source and it's a little bit different to work with, so it's not something I regularly include in my baking, but this gives you the opportunity to try it. So first we're going to start by making our buttermilk because I don't have buttermilk on hand. And that's as simple as taking your 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and filling it up to a cup of milk. Now I'll give this a little stir and I'll let it sit for a few minutes before we go on to the next step. While the milk and lemon juice are sitting, we can go ahead and add our flour into our mixing bowl. And then add in our salt, sugar, baking soda, and baking powder. And then we're going to add in our butter cubes. And these should be cold because you're going to cut them in with a pastry cutter. Now this is a pastry cutter, and so you're just going to press down into your mix until you start to see it gets to little pebbles form. Now if you don't have a pastry cutter, you can go ahead and use a sturdy fork. Once you have little pebbles formed, we'll go ahead and set that aside for a minute. We're going to measure out 1 cup of our buttermilk, and we're going to heat this up so it's just a nice warm temperature to mix in our Psyllium Husk. About 45 seconds in the microwave is perfect. And then you're going to go ahead and while you're stirring, you're going to add in your Psyllium Husk. Now this is going to turn to gel really quickly, so you want to make sure that you're stirring while you are adding. Now you'll see it started to turn to a gel, and we're just going to let that sit for just a couple more seconds and it's going to get even thicker. So now you'll see this has turned to a nice gel, and we're going to go ahead and add that into our dough mixture that we have already. We're going to add our 2 eggs, and now we're going to use our dough hook to mix this until a nice soft dough is formed. Now that our dough is mixed, we're going to go ahead and take 2 sheets of saran wrap and lay them out for rolling our dough out on. And then we're going to sprinkle with flour. Now we're going to take that dough and turn it out onto the saran wrap and just bring it together. And I like to form mine into kind of a rectangle because it makes it easier for rolling. Now we're going to sprinkle this with just a light dusting of flour on top and place another layer of saran wrap over top. Now we're going to roll this dough out to about 1/4 inch thick. Okay, now we're going to put our cast iron into the oven. If you are using a cast iron, you'll want to preheat it. If you're using just a glass or tin baking dish, you do not need to preheat your pan. Now while our pan is in preheating, we're gonna go ahead and mix up the filling, which is just a half a cup of butter, a cup of brown sugar, and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. Now depending on how soft your butter is will determine on how this mixes up. If your butter is a little soft, it might turn into more of a paste, and that's okay. And then once we have the filling mixed up, we're gonna remove that top layer of saran wrap. We're going to spread our filling mix out on our dough. Again, depending on how melted your butter is, this may spread better than not. If it is a little bit cooler like mine is, you can just go ahead and crumble it across your dough. And now that you have your filling spread out, you've taken your pan out of the oven and you've greased that. I just put butter in mine. You're gonna go ahead and roll up your cinnamon rolls. From here, we're just gonna cut and place these in the pan. I like to cut mine about 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick. And lastly, using either leftover buttermilk or heavy cream, you're just going to brush your rolls, all the exposed edges. And then these are gonna bake at 450 degrees for about 18 minutes. All right, the cinnamon rolls are done baking and it is time to make the frosting. We have butter and cream cheese that we're gonna go ahead and cream together before adding anything else. You want to scrape this down partway through and make sure that you get this nice and creamy so that there aren't extra chunks in it. Once you have that cream together, then we're going to slowly add in the powdered sugar. You're also going to add in 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then once that is mixed together, you're gonna add in your vanilla and your heavy cream. There you have it, friends, an absolutely delicious gluten-free cinnamon roll.